whether it's music or food. It's not an intellectual thing. It's a love. It's something that you're bringing to what you do.
Welcome, guys, to Industry Only at the Cheese Store of Beverly Hills. Today is one of my most favorite days because we have someone on the show that literally is a true cultural icon. He's a rock star from the band Kiss, Mr. Paul Stanley. Paul, thank you so much for being on the show. I am beyond ecstatic that you're here. Working at the cheese store for as long as I have, I remember Paul coming in and stuff, and I just remember, like, you're the coolest rock star I've ever met. People come up to him, want to take pictures with him. And also, too, you're the most Italian Jewish guy I know who makes some of the best meatballs.
Hey.
Right. Yeah, we're going to talk about it later, but yeah. Paul's in the restaurant business too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
but we should be talking about, let's talk about this food. Let's talk about this culture. It's so glorious. For me, growing up in New York, going to Arthur Avenue, that's, we would
the red sauce in the Bronx, man, nothing like that.
And the cannolis, come on.
Right. And I lived in Brooklyn, and I'm giving Arthur Avenue love because I know, Yeah, but tell me about those experiences just eating around, because what a lot of people don't realize unless they're in a city like New York is how strollable it is, right? And you're going through a neighborhood and you go to this one shop just to get one thing, and you go to the next shop just to get one thing, and then you linger somewhere and it feels European and all that. But what was that experience like for you? What do you really love about that?
I was really fortunate because my parents were European, and we ate everything. I mean, the only thing we didn't have is Wonder Bread. I mean, we didn't. that wasn't even.
Well, you were totally missing out.
That wasn't food.
Let's get him some Wonder Bread now. Yeah.
It's like, come on, Mom, buy some Wonder Bread. I mean, that was sacrilege. But we went to all kinds of restaurants, and I was eating sushi, 65 years ago, things like that. Back then they thought of it as bait, or fishing. But I was exposed to a lot of food, but somehow I've always had this connection and affinity for Italy, Italian food, even just going down to the San Gennaro feast and having zeppoli, having a paper bag. And
shake it up with the powdered sugar, nice and hot. Yeah.
Come on. So that's my soul food.
So Italian food is like, that's your sweet spot.
That's my sweet spot.
Right. You still go to Mozza all the time, right? Or has this been a thing for you over the years?
I love Mozza. It's a bit of a drive, which is kind of funny, but my wife doesn't like going too far out of the area. Of course, the food's great. A couple of nights ago, we were at Rayo's.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Oh, the Rayo's here.
Are you on that side of town?
Yeah. And it's, it's East Coast grandma Italian food.
It's like old school. What you remember, what you grew up with.
It's East Coast old school Italian, Of course, you've got this elevated, you have Medeo's and places like that, which are wonderful. But, the core of it is Sunday gravy and all that stuff.
So I guess, like, give us a little bit of an example, because I know your parents are from Europe, right?
Yes.
Give us a little bit of an example of like what was like some comfort, obviously not Wonder Bread, but what was some comfort food that you ate growing up? What were some of the things that, like, your mom, because I mean, come on, man, like, our moms, I don't care what you have, I don't care what Michelin star restaurant you go to, our moms make the best food.
Oh, totally.
Right? So, like, what was that like? What were some of the dishes that you remember that you're just like, oh, dude, man, I miss that?
My mom would make homemade blintzes. And blintzes are like crepes filled with, they would be filled with like a cottage cheese and cinnamon and sugar. And even when I moved out here first in the 70s, my mom would freeze them and send them to me. That was great. She used to make a cherry cake. We had a neighbor who had a cherry tree, so she'd make this sour cherry cake, and nothing special, but awesome. We also had a bakery near the house because my neighborhood, it was predominantly Irish Catholic, But then there was this group of
This is Manhattan, right?
yes,
Yeah.
211th and Broadway. So it's almost out of Manhattan. And there was also a bunch of European Jews who fled and made it into the States. So there was a bakery called Stearns. Stearns Bakery was about the size of this room. And it was heaven. I mean, the smell of it, I mean, I can smell it today. These apple crumb cakes, that you would slice, or a cheesecake, just thin, rainbow cake. Interesting, because you get that in
The rainbow cookies.
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So it was, I was a chubby, happy kid.
It's interesting. So like, there's so many influence, especially like being in New York, right? Like, so obviously like I'm from Staten Island, but there's, in Staten Island, it's like, I always say it's more Italian than Italy, right? You have all these Italian influences and things like that. Like, were there any restaurants that stood out to you when you were growing up, or was it just like we're eating at home and that's where the best food lives?
It was funny because I didn't really appreciate my mom's cooking until I went and had dinner at a friend's house. And I never did it again.
Right.
It was like, this is what you eat, So my mom was not a fancy cook, but she made a meat sauce. It wasn't quite a bolognese, but that was really good. And she made a really good meatloaf, and she was good at what she did. I ate it up.
In the sense of like, staying, like going around New York. So you really didn't eat at many restaurants and stuff like that. You kind of kept everything to the house. When did you start to really like get into cooking and enjoy cooking? Because I mean, I didn't know that side of you. I knew the guy that wore the makeup with the high boots and played guitar. I didn't know that side of you to like really get into cooking and stuff. Like what do you think the influence was?
And to clarify, right, you've bought ingredients and at the cheese store and you've cooked with that. So, I'd sort of just love to hear about like what that relationship is like too.
Well, I mean, it's funny because growing up too, we would go to a cheese store in New York. Other kids would go in and go, oh my God, it smells like feet or something like that. And I would just be in there, so I think because of all the food that I was exposed to, I loved it. And when I first started coming out to California and would come to the old cheese shop, it was just a touchstone for me. It was like, that's what I grew up with. And people who are passionate about their food, that's beautiful, to be passionate about what you eat or what you grow. I started cooking really because I got divorced, and my son, I wanted him to feel that everything was okay. I made breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but you learn. It's kind of like when I moved out to LA, I knew kind of like Beverly Hills, and once you know that, you kind of move. Okay, now you learn Santa Monica, so you kind of keep spreading out.
Sounds like your life, Tom.
And food can be like that. You start off with, by no means am I a complex chef, and I'm not a chef. I'm a cook. But you learn, saffron would go really great in this because we're having salmon or something like that. So you keep painting and you keep adding colors.
Right.
So I love cooking, and my kids and my wife joke with me all the time. They think it's very funny. They'll see me and they go, "You're taking a photo of your food."
Oh, so you're the one who does that, and then they have to wait to eat. Wow.
So I kind of broke his balls for a while because he kept telling me about these meatballs. Then he showed me all these pictures of pasta, pizza, all this stuff. I'm like, bro, like, when did we get to try this? And then finally, after all these years, it was a few months ago, he brought it in, and we all went nuts. We all like devoured it. It was delicious, and but I love the fact that you like care that much about the food. And also too, you know, it's like he made a difference between a chef and a cook. Like, so, I mean, you're clearly into it, you know, to make that noticeable difference.
He has a respect for like what the craft and the actual job is. But like, you know, home cooks are the best cooks. That's the food that you enjoy the most, that you think about the most. I mean, you may sort of remember that you ate at a restaurant and, you know, this restaurant, and you ate at this other restaurant. But the things that you sort of crave, like a lot of the meals, they just remind you of the things that you ate at home, right?
Yeah,
and that's your sort of yardstick. You compare.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Would your grandma make a better version of this? And the answer usually is like, yes, of course.
Right. Yeah.
You know, funny though, because you know, with cooking, the best thing I ever do is if I sit down, and often my family doesn't eat what I eat because, you know, I'm off on my own tangent, but I'll sit, and the biggest compliment I can give my food is when I'll taste something and go, I would pay for this in a restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, I would go back to this restaurant. So
you've obviously had the opportunity, you know, to travel all over the world, and you're still doing that. Like, how does that end up influencing your cooking? Or is it more just like, I'm eating something, you know, elsewhere to enjoy, and then I come home and I still do my food? Or do you really go on your trips and think, oh, well, I should start using that spice or that ingredient or that technique?
You know, my technique is to throw up my hands and just, you know, I have no technique. My technique is, what am I doing? But everything kind of veers back to Italian. Everything, you know, if I had one food I could eat the rest of my life, it would be pasta, because you can cook it differently from today until the day you die.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I love about it is just what goes on it, and you know, that's my pleasure. That's my passion.
So you obviously, like, you traveled like all over, like you've literally been all over the world.
Pretty much.
All over the world.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is there any type of cuisine that, like, I mean, besides Italian, because we know you're dialed in, but like, is there any type of cuisine where you were just blown away by, like, wow, man, I've been to the city, I'll probably never come back. Like, I loved it. It was, or anything that kind of stuck out at you food wise when you were traveling?
I had some really great Peruvian food, you know, great fish and great spices, and Japanese food is fantastic, and they're amazing. They can replicate Italian food. They can make French food.
Some of the best pizza right now. Like, they have a style of pizza in Tokyo.
Yeah, and there's good pasta there too. But you were talking about places like Saint-Can and Savoy. Yeah, like arguably that's some of the best pizza in the world.
Fascinating about pizza is that one pizza can have nothing to do with another. I mean, you know, it's all in interpretation.
Yeah.
But I love throwing dough, you know, throwing it up in the air.
So you do that?
Oh, yeah.
You make your own pizza.
I have videos. I'll throw the dough up in the air, and people go, you know, how'd you do it? I said, throwing it up is easy. Catching it.
Right.
You know, getting it up there, but you don't want it on the floor. But that's I think people stop themselves and become afraid. I mean, if you just throw it up in the air and spin it, it's going to come down and spin it again, you know?
Yeah, I usually tear a hole right through the middle when I do that.
The idea is to get it thin enough that you can kind of see through it, but not put your hand through it.
Right.
Because kind of pinching it together and performing surgery on it doesn't usually work.
Yeah, no, you'll never get it back together. Once it tears, you're done.
And you put it in the oven and you try to take it out later on, and the sauce is underneath it, and it's
a disaster.
Just a mess. Don't do that.
Okay, so we've established that Paul is not part of the chef team at the restaurant group that he's involved in. But tell me a little bit about why you wanted to have your own restaurant of any kind, how this happened, and what Rock Brews is.
I think that the best successes come from you fulfilling your own needs. You know, instead of second guessing the public, you are the public.
Right.
So what would I like? And invariably, it'll find other people who are like you. So Rock Brews is a family restaurant, but it's also a place you can go with your friends at night. Great drinks. The food is really, really good. there's nothing worse than a theme restaurant where, you know, if you take your kids, you have to be served cold pizza by somebody dressed like a rat. You know? So Rock and Brews have great food. Everyone who works there is really wonderful. And it really feels more like a neighborhood establishment than, you know, a cookie cutter place that you kind of drop in. So most of them are pet friendly. You know, you can have your animals outside and in certain areas, and kids love the food. I think it was just yesterday, day before, my son said, "We need to go to Rock and Brews for dinner." You know,
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so it really became a place for my kids and for my family. That's what I would like. So that's really what it became. It's not a place that you have dead people's clothes hanging on the wall. You know, this was the outfit that so-and-so wore 50 years ago. It's really about, you know, surrounding yourself with the spirit of rock and roll. You know, there's murals and things like that, but it's a great hang. It's a great place. Can be all things to all people. And we're also involved whenever we open a new Rock and Brews. The first day is free meals for first responders and veterans. Oh, those are the people who made this all possible. Yeah. So, you know, we tend to think of ourselves as part of the community or make ourselves part of the community. So it's a good thing. And the food is top notch. Yeah. You know, it's
what do you eat at your own restaurant? You were just saying that your son wanted to go. What was the order that night?
We have great salads. There's a strawberry field salad, which is really cool. Yeah, sounds really good. The burgers are off the hook. They're great burgers. The pizza's really good. There's something called purple raindrops. It's actually kind of like Zeppoli. It's kind of like a Zeppoli with like a fruit filling on top of it. I love the fish tacos. Great fish tacos. So, you know, it's not a theme restaurant in the sense that it's a way to sell T-shirts.
Right.
You know, it's good food and a place that I'm proud of. Thankfully, I don't have to put my name on anything. You know, so if I'm going to do it, I better feel good about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about your cooking. We talked about you know, your some of the foods that you enjoy cooking and stuff like that. If you had someone of course I'm going to use McCartney because he's you know, if McCartney was coming to dinner, or if you had, and I'm sure you've had a million people come to your house, what would you cook one of your biggest influences in music, whether dead or alive, what would you cook for them if they came to your house for dinner, and who would it be?
Jimmy Page would be great. What would I make? Maybe I'd make like a grilled salmon, you know, with like a puttanesca, you know, with olives and anchovies and, you know, some heat, and you know, do it in a pan and make it nice, you know.
Why Jimmy?
He was really a big influence. When I saw Zeppelin in '69, I was like 17, I think, and it was astounding how not only how good they were, but how glued together they were, and how they looked the part. They really looked aristocratic as far as rock and roll. And it kind of set a bar for me that I knew I would never reach. But it's sometimes important in life to know that kind of excellence exists. So I'm not going to reach this, but it does exist. So, you know, up your game. So I'm fortunate enough he's become a friend, which is amazing. You know, that's one of those things in life where.
So meet your hero.
Yeah, and for them to be wonderful, go out for tea when I'm in London. He was at our last couple of shows in London, you know, and when you look out and there's Jimmy smiling like this, it's like, you know, I just got a chill. It's like, pinch me. So it's always great to meet your heroes if they turn out to be wonderful people. Some of them you can find yourself wishing you never crossed paths with. But yeah, I would probably make some grilled salmon with a really hearty sauce.
Has anyone? So like, you know, we talk about Jimmy Page, which is crazy. Has anyone ever made you like totally starstruck where you were just like, whoa, dude, like what is going on? Like sometimes you pan the crowd, like somebody make you nervous while you're playing. Like, you've been doing this for a long time and you know, at the level that it's iconic. You're an icon. You really are. Like, anyone ever make you nervous? Any audition, anything like that ever you were just like, holy shit.
I think if you lose that awe, you've lost something really important, and it's sad to lose that. If you become so blasé and so full of yourself that other people don't elicit that awe. Yeah, I mean, I see musicians or meet people or you know, people in the public eye, and I'm still a fanboy. I never want to lose that. I never want to, you know. I think there's something to be said for not knowing how important or influential or what you mean to other people, because you become full of yourself.
Yeah. Lesson for you there, Dom, right?
Oh man, I gotta take it down a notch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so here, let me tell you what you're eating. So we just opened this wheel a little while ago. This is the Parmigiano Reggiano, but this is the Vacca Rossa. So this is like a 30-month aged, 30-month. You have Prosciutto di Parma from Parma. This is a 24-month Parma. Underneath that is this amazing scacciata bread from a guy by the name of Enzo. He's this guy from Naples. He has this really small bakery in Redondo Beach. Literally, Paul, opening day, he comes in. He's like, "Would you like to try my bread?" I said, "Sure." I
had this here, and I said, "This is crazy."
It's special, man. It's really special, and he really is like a man of his craft. So we did that with a little bit of the prosciutto. And then I just got a couple of little cheeses over here. I want you to try this one. This is called Buhaiolo. This is a sheep's milk cheese, aged in fennel pollen and covered on the outside with wild fennel seed. From Tuscany, like it's just...
Yeah, the fennel is great.
So to me, that's like, I don't know, that's like a nice little bite. But anyway, so all right, so I kind of, you know, I
You're
actually
asking me questions, and I'm
no, I love it. Yeah. I do want to tell. I
that's what everybody wants.
I thought it'd be kind of fun to tell you the story. So I was almost going to say, like, I almost feel like I'm in Wayne's World a little bit. Like it's a little surreal because I actually play guitar. I was a studio jazz guitar player at USC.
Awesome.
So yes,
my son just got into USC.
Great school.
Yeah, he just got in about a week ago.
Oh, I love it. Congratulations. Hard to get in. I mean, I probably wouldn't get in now.
That's fair. You know how many people say that to me? They go, "I went to USC. I wouldn't get into it."
Yeah. I probably wouldn't get in. But I remember, you know, that's kind of what got me out to Los Angeles. And I remember when I first got the job at the cheese store. So it was kind of cool because, you know, obviously you're in cover bands and stuff, and we covered some Kiss songs. It was like, I grew up with you, man.
You can teach me.
I had posters of you guys on my wall, right, as a kid. But so which is why it's really surreal for me. But one of the things that I thought it was kind of like a little bit of a funny story to share. So when I first started working at the cheese store, and you know Norbert, I mean, the biggest Beatles fan that ever lived, right? And as I'll never forget, like I walk in it took like a month of calling, you know, the cheese store at the time didn't have call waiting. It was like one line. Like I called to try and get a job in the food business. And I knew the cheese store was the spot. But what was funny was as I finally got my foot in the door. So day one, I see Norbert and I don't know what I'm making an hour. I don't know what's going on, but you know, he was like, if you know Norb, he's one of those guys, like he's kind of quiet to himself, but like once you start to get him talking, like he's like a ball breaker, you know, he's in a really good way. So I remember like after the first day, I was like, hey man, and I was calling him like Mr. Wobnick. I'm like, hey, like, would you mind if can we just have a conversation real quick? I worked like for 7 hours, had no idea what I was being paid. I'm like, would you mind if we just like, can you know what I'm making? And he was like, yeah, sure. And he's like, why don't you come upstairs? So at the old cheese store, I mean, I know you saw it, like there was a baby grand piano up there and he had like the Hofner bass from Paul McCartney from the Beatles, like had like the Super Beatle there and all these things. And I saw all these Beatle posters. And then I was like, oh man, I was like, oh, you play? He's like, yeah, why do you? I was like, well, I mean, I could dabble. And he's like, well, what do you know? I was like, well, I mean, you like the Beatles, right? So we started playing some Beatles.
Oh, cool.
And that's how I negotiated my salary with Norbert. And I'll never forget it. It was like $7 on the books and like $3 off. But my whole thing is like,
who came up with that?
Well, he probably wanted to give me 5 and 2, but I had to stand my ground. But we just came up with a number, and I just knew I think I needed to make $10 an hour just to like float rent and do whatever. But it's interesting, and the reason why I think there's so many parallels is because in a lot of ways, like my music background brought me to food, and food kind of brought me to music. Like it's kind of like a circle, and I think that in one capacity or another, everybody, at least for myself, like. I used music as a vehicle to get into the food business because I knew that, that's what I really wanted to do. And I just find it interesting how there's, people can relate to both music and food. And I think that, that's something really special about that. And, when you're sitting here.
Right. Because you're creating the thing that like for other people, it's their pleasure, it's their respite, it's their comfort. It's the thing that they need 100%. It's something that people think about all the time because it's not that it's just something that they want. They need it to be part of their lives.
And you kind of just come sort of full circle. So, I mean, I thought that was, I love the fact that, as a guitar player, as a musician, you love the food aspect of things. And I don't know, I just think that's like.
But that's what life's about.
Yeah.
Life's about introducing yourself to something and then, okay, that's great. And, you broaden your palette, you broaden the screen, you go from TV to IMAX by increments, I mean, I started painting 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And it was, I'm of the belief you don't say why, you say why not. You do, people limit themselves so much. And that's a shame because people don't give themselves credit to try things and then they shut themselves down. And I'm just not like that. I'm game.
Yeah.
Let's.
So are you still actively looking to find new restaurants to go to? How often do you go out? Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to stay away from the trendy spot of the moment.
Right.
Because next year it'll be gone.
Right.
So, there are staples. Spago has been doing it forever.
Right. And you still go?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I remember Spago when it was on Sunset. Mm-hmm. And in 83, I used to go there. I talked to Wolf about stuff like that. I used to go to that one. That food is solid, unpretentious, but the real deal. Great ingredients and well prepared, and the staff is great. So I tend to go back to places that I'm not that adventurous because you only have so much time. And if I try a new restaurant, chances are there's a good chance I go, I should have gone to that place.
Yeah, over time, what have been some of your other go-tos in LA?
Let's see. I mean, Spago always stands out. I love now Dante.
It's great. One of the best views in the city too.
Right.
Like it's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Right. Great cocktails along just with food you can eat every day.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's kind of like there's almost like a Parisian vibe to it when all the doors are open.
You get the view, the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can look straight down and see all the activity down too. But if you don't look straight down, it's just you're somewhere else.
Yeah, it's so that's certainly not an older restaurant. Medeo's is great, always has been, and his son opened a restaurant, and That's terrific. It's a little noisy. I'm deaf on one side, truly, and I was born like that. It's not music. So, that's a priority for me. Is if I go to a restaurant and I can't talk, that's not that exciting for me. Yeah. So,
you like pasta. We were talking about that earlier.
Bunky.
Yeah.
That's great. He does a great job.
Yeah. So,
and that's new. That's trendy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's new and trendy, but he's serving classic.
Yeah, he's serving classic.
By the book Roman food.
Yeah. You remember Pistola?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So
that was a great spot. That was
great.
Melrose?
It was on Third, I think.
Third. Yeah. One of those. Yeah. Wow.
So I'm trying to think. I think he's involved in that new
the private club, right?
Gravitas.
Yeah. So Gravitas, I just ate there recently. They have a great chicken parm there. Have you been there yet?
So we're going next week or the week after.
So that chicken parm, I could not agree more with you.
And you sell cheese there too, right?
I do. So we sell the cheese and we sell the pasta.
Oh, nice.
So here's what's interesting about Gravitas, which I absolutely love. So that chicken parm, I'm like, man, how the hell did they get that? Like it's tender, man. It's like a pizza.
I know the answer, but this is so great that we both know this.
Yeah. So the first time I went there, I was like, wow, man, this thing is so tender. It's unbelievable. And they literally bring it out like a pizza. They cut it like a pie. You could eat it like.
It looks like a Frisbee.
Yeah.
Covered in marinara sauce. It's the most beautiful thing you'll ever see.
And, okay, what is it?
So, look, this is a crazy thing to say, right? Because you were talking about, eating on Arthur Avenue. Who's in Staten Island? I spent 15 years of my life eating Italian-American food in Brooklyn. That stuff is hard to find here. And so I was talking to the chef Preston about how is this chicken parm? He goes, well, I didn't think about it like a chicken parm. I mean, I love chicken parm, but a lot of times chicken parm is just the breast and it's dry. So I took the thigh and all the good parts of it, the skin and the fat. So think about how you make a sausage, or think how about you make a hamburger blend, and he ground it all together and he turned in this thing. And that's why it's so, but
dude, so good.
He told you this too, right?
So I didn't, by the way, he never told me that part of the story.
Yeah.
But I just realized, I'm like, dude, this is like ground chicken, but it's not ground chicken, but you don't think about it. I went there after the second time and had it, and dude, this is not like a regular chicken breast. Something's up with this. And it was, but in the most positive, amazing way.
I got to go back and eat chicken parm with you because I didn't realize that the guy who grew up in Staten Island and me, who's so picky about Italian-American food, that I'll be like, yes, La Dolce Vita is really good, but come on, we've been in Brooklyn and, we've been in the Bronx. There are 20 restaurants that are like this. This is a great, but yeah. This chicken parm is different than other chicken parm.
It's really different.
That's what I'm ordering.
Yeah, you better. You have to now.
Oh,
and don't forget, don't sleep on the pasta, bro. He makes great pasta too.
Yeah, I had a bolognese there that was good.
It was delicious. His cassonacce is really good.
Yeah, but the menu is like you're eating at South Beverly Grill, one of those Hillstone restaurants. So if you feel like getting sushi or wagyu on a hot rock or something, order that too, because it's like this chef. He actually, that he cooked at El Buco Alimentari in New York, which was
not know that.
A great Italian restaurant.
Preston?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Preston cooked there. He worked for Jonathan Waxman before that. He ran a restaurant called Freeman's. He was at Peel. So this is like a very serious executive chef. And now he's doing this. So of course, but I just can't believe that if the two of us are talking about the chicken parm, then I guess that thing's real.
We got to go.
All right. But I'm excited. But again, it ties back to Pistola and the fact that this is what it means to come to a cheese store for decades, like you're saying, and have relationships with restaurants and want to keep up with people, because that narrative is really interesting, that you love that restaurant. One of the partners in that restaurant, is involved in this new private club. And
that's what really raised my interest in the restaurant was his involvement. I went, okay, this is...
that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to D.C. tomorrow and Monday night.
You going to Mozart in D.C.?
I don't have time.
Okay, you.
So I'm going to go to in New York. What's his name? He's partners with Carbone, Rich
Teresi.
Yeah, Teresi.
Yeah. You're going to Teresi?
Oh, I love it.
Teresi's an amazing restaurant.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I've never been, but I heard nothing but amazing things about it.
As soon as I was going back to New York, I called my buddy Rocco DeSpirito.
Of course.
And I said, Rocco, he's got more pull than I do. So Rocco, can you call and get me a table? So that's
what's your go-to there.
They have this duck.
Yes. Yeah, with the crispy skin and the way that he just airs
Yeah,
it
it's
out.
got, almost got like a hoisin kind of
Yeah.
Oh,
sauce.
sign me up. I'm into that.
It's crazy.
Love
It's
hoisin.
crazy. But they just brought me out like everything, and it was heaven. Great pastas, everything that we had.
Those guys are, I mean, they're just operating at another level. They do everything
Right.
just like top notch.
Yeah.
The food, the service, they're
Crazy.
just
Yeah, but the thing to
amazing.
know about Teresi, right? Carbone, in a lot of ways, it is that Italian American restaurant where you know what the things are on the menu. Teresi's a thing where Rich is just thinks up things in his mind, or he thinks about what it's like to be a New Yorker, and he just does it, right? So he has an angel hair AOP, and he serves it with Cantonese lobster, right?
Yeah.
He does one pasta that's a Jamaican patty ragu, and then the craziest pasta that I've had in the last couple of years. I don't know if you've had this, Paul, but you gotta get it. He does a spaghetti that's a little spicy. It's spaghetti with Manhattan clam sauce. So he's like, what if I just put the idea of clam chowder and spaghetti together in the hands of a lesser
sign me
I'm
up
down.
and
In
in
the
the
hands of
sidecar of bread, and I'll be dipping all in
right
there.
in the hands of a lesser chef, you'd be like, what the fuck is this
Yeah,
Mad
why?
Lib stuff? But because it's him and he knows how to calibrate it, you eat it and you're like, this stuff these ingredients should have been together the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
He just knows something that the rest of us don't.
Yeah, that's what
and that's why Teresi's special to
Yeah,
me.
I love it because it wasn't. It was by the book, but then you take that as your foundation, and you broaden it.
Yeah.
So, food was just wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, the pomodoro sauce,
I've
just
never eaten
like
it,
just
man.
by
I need to-
just by itself is so textbook, but then you realize everything else that he's doing, right?
Right.
So yeah, all right.
Scott Conan had a great.
Oh, I love Scott. I was just thinking about him.
Yeah,
So you were talking about the original Scarpetta, or even
Yeah.
before? Yeah.
yeah.
Real
I mean,
scarpetta.
his tomato basil was.
Yeah, that was the thing. Man.
Yeah.
That was it. And then even
Yeah.
when he opened here,
Yeah.
that was like that
Well,
was
no,
the
his
dish.
spaghetti, tomato, and basil, like it was the best marinara sauce that he had. And it was a funny thing, right? Because he would basically always say that it's 3 ingredients, and then you would see him cooking it and he'd be putting basil. It's like, Art, you're lying. It's not just 3 ingredients, but
Right.
How about it's you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Wow.
it's like I was talking with somebody about doctors and somebody who does amazing surgeries, and some other doctor said, "Oh, I can do that," and I was like, "Yeah, it's carpentry." But carpentry is in the hands of the person doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could do that, but it's not going to turn out like that. So
yeah.
food. Yeah, you can take basic ingredients, and it's
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's execution. It's what kind of ingredient.
Yeah.
Where is it coming
And
from?
that's
it's like a whole
where
thing.
the difference is, like you were saying, right? Like chef versus cook, because there's chefs I know who now have empires, and we know a lot of the same, who have 10 plus restaurants. And then you'll go to one restaurant and the crudos are better when they make it because they're just there with their fingers in the finishing salts. And it should just be like everybody should know how to apply salt. But you're right, in a lot of cases, it's you.
totally.
And nobody else can do that.
Well, 2 guitar players pick up the same guitar,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a completely
It's a
different experience.
different
I
show.
remember being at Per Se, and when Tom Keller's there, the food is better.
Yeah.
Wow.
The food is better. It's just the difference that
So you were talking, you're just mentioning the 2 different guitar players, and it's something that I think about with food a lot. I want to get your thoughts on this in terms of both food and music, right? Obviously, like for both food and music, to be at the highest level, you need a certain amount of technical skill. You need to know how to do ABC. A lot of that stuff is learned and taught. But then there's this other thing, which is sort of the intangible.
the
Some
je
people,
ne sais quoi.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You don't know what it is. So for you, like in terms of music and food, like how few people, I guess, really have it, and how do you instantly see, eat, hear something and recognize, oh, that's got something. I don't know what it is, but that's different, right?
Well, yeah, you go that je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
It's what separates great art from other art. It's not necessarily the same paints.
Yeah.
So, innately, it's an emotional attachment. That's what makes
Yeah.
for greatness, whether it's music or food. It has to touch you. It's not an intellectual thing. It's how it makes you feel. So
Yeah.
Certainly there are musicians, you know, I always say I'm not a virtuoso, I'm a virtuoso. You know, it just comes down to being able to touch that nerve, and that comes from a quality that can't be taught. It's a love. It's something that you're bringing to what you do.
Yeah, it's about like, I mean, the best restaurants are about making people feel more alive, right? And I think the thing that we're getting at when you're talking about cooks versus chefs and experiences in music and all that is that like the people that are the most technically adept at something, they're not necessarily the best at it. They're not necessarily people who create the things that are most moving and
They're
right.
technicians.
Yeah.
You know, that's my good friend Julian Serrano.
Yeah.
Love him, by the way.
Picasso.
He's a character. I absolutely love him.
Yeah, what a Vegas
He is-
icon too.
He is
decades.
a character amongst
Yeah,
characters.
he retired.
Yeah.
But he was. I mean, he's been at my weddings, and
That's
you
so
know,
cool.
I love him to death. But he's that perfect combination of his restaurant really brought joy, and the chef and the staff have to love what they're doing and love giving it to you, presenting it to you. And you know, some restaurants, you know, it becomes all about contrivance and pretense. You know, take the clothes off, and there's some looks like baby shit with one shrimp with a piece of rosemary stuck in its ass. You know, and voila. You know, so you know that's. We were in Madrid together, and Julian said to me that he had gone out to dinner there the night before, and the chef wouldn't change something in the food, which, you know, he was allergic to or whatever. And it's like, come on, you know, it's
Yeah, I mean, well, Spain, they have some of the most avant-garde chefs, but those are also some of the most rigid ones, even though they're supposedly the most creative, right?
Yeah.
But just to get back to that, it's the personality of it's the business owner. Whether it's you walk into a store, it's a retail store, it's a restaurant, it starts at the top, right? So you have a character like Julian's character. You have a guy like him, of course, like it's going to rub off, and then like you said, it's like the personality shines through in the food, right? And that's the magic.
and you surround yourself. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself
Absolutely.
with. And when you build, you know, your little niche or your empire, you have to have people around you who reflect that same point of view. And in a restaurant, you want to have people who aren't looking down at the people eating there. Not to forget that most of the staff couldn't afford to eat there.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
You know, it's no different than going into a clothing store. I remember years ago, I might go into a clothing store, and it's like, hey, you couldn't afford the clothes that you're selling, so pipe down a little, you know. So yeah, it all comes down to passion.
Mhm.
It all comes down to love of what you're doing, and that's the unknown, and that's the ingredient that you can't teach. You can build on it, but without that, it doesn't have depth. You know, if it doesn't have that joy of experience and wanting to share that, you know. I have a friend in another one in Vegas when Barry.
Off the strip, like almost near downtown.
Right. It's called Barry's Prime, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've known him forever because he used to have a restaurant 9.
Oh yeah, at Palms when that was the hottest
Palms,
thing. Yeah.
And his joy in cooking, his big joke with my son, one of my sons, was we couldn't get out of there. He just, no, you got one more thing. You have to try one more thing. And we're in there, and it's like, we got to go to bed. Wait, I've got gnocchi coming in. You got to try this. You got to. So, but that's what you need. You need that passion and love, and wanting to share that with people who also feel that. Barry sends me pictures all the time of, you know, white truffles that he just got in, or he'll send me pictures of steaks or lobsters, and wanting to share that is what it's all about. Is finding people, like-minded people, staff and hopefully you build up a clientele that shares that joy.
Yeah. No, and I mean, you clearly have relationships with chefs that, run decades. You have a relationship here. So how does it usually start? Is it just they realize that you like their food, or?
I walk in, they don't throw me out.
Yeah.
That's how it starts.
Yeah.
I think, again, you sense that in people.
Right.
When I make meatballs, I bring in meatballs. It's just like you want to share. And if something makes you happy, it's wonderful to make other people happy. So, same with Scott Conant. I was growing some peppers up at my house, and somehow the peppers that I was growing were not the ones that they were supposed to be, but they were super hot and wonderful. And I brought them to Scott, and he made this, not for me, he sent me a photo of it, this incredible duck ragu with, the peppers in it. But yeah, I like sharing my joy for food because I know so little.
Yeah.
And I want to be around people who take my hand and kind of, show me, feed me. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and I mean that whole lineage you're mentioning, Scott, right? Because it's you remember Bartolotta,
Of course,
right? And obviously, like Scott worked with him in New York and all that too. But there was a moment. I wrote a story recently about all these new restaurants these restaurants that Michael White is opening. I wrote something about Andrew Carmelini, and I was talking to everybody, and there's a moment in time where Scott, Andrew, and Michael were just like the three pasta kings, and they were running everything. The thing that makes me very happy years from now is that like they've scattered, and Scott moved to Arizona, and I think he has a restaurant in Atlanta, and he's still thriving in his own way, and he's got a sandwich concept that he wants to open. Michael is not part of Murray, and he's opened different restaurants. Andrew just opened a pasta bar near Penn Station and something at Hudson Yards. Is that they're all still just cooking Italian food. And now there's a lot of people, Andrew was telling me, they go to his restaurant, they don't know who he is, but they like the Italian food, so they just go there. And so to me, it's sort of, these people deserve to be superstars, but their food is the thing that shines. And it's very, heartening to me that like they can just maintain this quality this many years and keep doing new things.
Yeah. I'm fortunate. Rocco's a good friend, and Rocco, the meatball recipe is his mom's.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that's the basis is, but Chris Santos,
Oh yeah. Beauty and Essex. Yeah.
Beauty and Essex. Mm-hmm. What a cool idea. And, I was at their wedding, at Chris's wedding, and never had better food at a wedding.
Yeah. Right. He was cooking at his own wedding while his people were, obviously.
Yeah. I want to just ask you, so like in terms of cities and best food cities, what would you say, and I know you have the Italian influence, but like, being as traveled as you are, what would you say is like some of the best food cities that you love going to?
There's so many opportunities in New York because it's a melting pot. Mm-hmm. So there's great restaurants in Chicago. I actually just wrote a blurb for Curtis Duffy's book because Curtis, his restaurant there now is, I think, Ever, but I'm game anywhere. The thing I love about New York is that pretty much anything you can have anywhere, you can have there.
Yeah.
We used to go when I was growing up. If we certainly didn't have money to speak of, but once every few years we go to Luchow's, which it became something very different than what it originally was. But when it was a really great German, Bavarian restaurant, it was pretty awesome. I like going to Germany and eating Weisswurst and bratwurst and currywurst. and red cabbage, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all food.
It's all
Look,
great.
it makes us all smile.
Yeah.
You know, how cool is that?
Yeah.
All right. So obviously we want to be respectful of your time and stuff, but I do have one final question. At least on my end. I'm sure you might have some, Andy, but like, I know that.
No, I just love watching him.
Because I'm like, all right. Okay. So
I love it.
I know you guys are done touring. Kiss is done touring.
Yes, we're
For
done.
sure.
Yes.
There's no final tour.
No.
It's
You
over.
know, it's over.
Okay.
It's over. It's been absolutely mind-boggling. You know, 50 mind-boggling years. I was just, I hate to sound like I'm dropping names, but I was with the guys, Duff and some of the guys in Guns N' Roses yesterday because they're rehearsing. And
Look, if you ever want to have a meeting down here, I got you. Bro.
yeah.
You can bring anybody.
Okay. And we were all talking about, oh yeah, I just got a shot in my hip and I just got a shot. You know, there's no, you know, I'm 73. There's
God
no,
bless you, bro.
there's no basketball players in their 70s or 60s. So to be out there doing what we were doing, what I was doing, you know, it not only takes a physical toll, which it did. I've had both surgery, but you know, I've torn both rotator cuffs. I popped a bicep tendon. I've had a hip replacement. I've had my knee scoped. So you just reach a point. We have this this abbreviation for QTR, quality time remaining. At some point in your life, you start to think life, you know, is finite. It doesn't go on forever. What do you want to do? I want to spend more time with my family. Physically, I'm blessed. You know, I can still, you know, I like to go ride my bike for 25 miles and do that a couple of times a week if I can. But yeah, the band has been the springboard for everything that I've done. But you know, it's a very special place that Kiss has. You know, if we were in jeans and you know sneakers, we could do it into our 80s or 90s. But that's not who we are or who we've been. So you can't be Superman forever.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, it's done. It's done, and I couldn't be more grateful. And there's great things to come. There'll be and I hate to use the word avatar, but there's going to be this amazing avatar show that will basically recreate us. It looks, I've seen my avatar, and you know, better looking and younger.
Right. So you approve of
And
it.
the hip
Yeah.
works. The hip works all right in the avatar.
Yes, he's good. He's
You
good.
should have them make one that like tosses pizza but does it better too.
Yeah. I have a video of me outside throwing pizza. It's probably 20 feet up in the air.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
You know,
That's
so,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Well, listen, once again, I know how busy you are. I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. It's been like, this was by far a highlight. And it's great, man. You're such a nice guy. And I, like I said before, I see how you are with fans when they come in and say hello to you and stuff like that. You're such a smart guy, nice guy. Thank you for spending the afternoon with us. It really was something so memorable for us.
People need to remember that you don't bite the hand that feeds you, literally. And when people come over to you, if people come over to me here, I couldn't afford to be here if it wasn't for them. Right. So how do you spurn the people who make everything possible? You know, all I can do is say thanks.
Wow. Awesome.
Great having you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Now, can I eat?
Go.